So, there is a saying that those born in this small town called Widow's Daughter can never leave this town. The history of this town, built on a small island surrounded by the sea, is very dark. Something very terrible has happened here. Although many people today consider the history associated with this island to be superstition, it is true that this island is cursed. But why? What is there under this entire island? To know that, you definitely have to watch this series. I have already explained the first episode of this series, which consists of approximately 10 episodes. The video is already ready. I'll give it in the description. Don't forget to watch. Otherwise, you will have a little trouble understanding this video. So, let's start. Welcome to my channel. And in this video, I will explain the TV series in full. So at the beginning we see Tom. The mayor of this place was tired and fell asleep. He ate that black mushroom and saw things that not everyone can see. Did that man say that this mushroom opens the third eye, and at one point in the story, we saw that these black mushrooms lying in the snow were eaten by a hungry man? That was Richard Warren, the first mayor of this place. It's clear that Richard Warren somehow got to this island and he was very hungry, and by sheer luck he found that mushroom and ate it. And then he somehow makes a deal with the devil. However, the secret of black mushrooms has not yet been revealed in that way. However, Tom regains consciousness and immediately receives a call from Patricia and Wick asking him to come to the museum, where Tom is completely surprised upon arrival. Did we see that Wick dug up Richard Warren's coffin and inside it was Richard Warren who was still alive? Several decades have passed. The man is still alive because his curse has not yet been cleared. And seeing such an old man, our current mayor, Tom, would be surprised. Anyway, Richard Warren is responding. He doesn't say anything verbally. He writes and talks to them. Richard tells them the truth that when the first people came to Widow's Bread, they were starving. There was no food. And at that moment, an evil force or a devil appears before them. Finally, Richard makes a deal with the monster to save himself. According to the agreement, in order to live on this island, Richard must sacrifice humans or hand over people one by one to the devil. They can stay here instead. The locket around Richard's neck, not the cylinder, as we saw, contains the original document of the deal made with the devil. And Richard also reveals that the demon is the one who has kept him alive for so many years. Richard's existence is necessary to continue the deal, but the only way to end this curse is if he can be removed from this island somehow, meaning outside the boundaries where the devil's power will not reach. Then Richard will finally die and the deal will be broken. And Tom was happy to hear that. Hope arose in his mind that there must be a way. Although Wyke was a little suspicious, Richard couldn't be trusted. That's why they decided to put Richard back in that coffin. Only then will he be taken onto the boat. Tom convinces him and says that he will release Richard as soon as they reach the border. It means they will take him out of the coffin. On the other hand, the sheriff, who came to investigate a complaint, meets Patricia and asks her a lot of questions. He notices that Patricia is not right and that Patricia is telling the truth about the curse of this place and Richard's stories. But the sheriff doesn't believe them at all. He thinks that Patricia may have gone crazy. On the other hand, Tom and Wakar are taking Richard by boat. Their plan was that the main board would reach the border and then a small boat would be loaded with the coffin and Richard would be taken further out because obviously, as we have seen, the people of this island are not able to leave this island, so they would obviously take Richard or somehow get him out of the border through that small boat. That was the plan. But Tom made a mistake and opened Richard's coffin earlier, where he had extended it from Wyke. Anyway, Wyke himself knows the story of this border. He also tells her a childhood story about how he and his friend got into a stolen boat and went very close to the island's borders, and as we know, the curse of this island is that his friend died a horrible death and to save himself, Wyke left him and ran away from there. So that thing is still haunting him. Because right now they are approaching that border again. Anyway, as I said, Tom opened Richard's coffin, thinking that Richard might be sick and might not be able to get up, but no, Richard attacked them in a real way. I mean, the one who initially said that he wanted to die also wanted the curse to be cleared, but his mood had changed, he wanted to live again. Anyway, in the end, they managed to fight and imprison Richard in the coffin again. At the same time, Tom showed his bravery for the first time, where Wyke had considered him a coward from the beginning. To save Tom Wyke, that is, to prevent Wyke from going beyond this boundary, he throws Wyke into the sea with a life ring so that he stays within that boundary. At the same time, the balance of the boat must be correct. However, their plan is successful. That coffin crossed the border, and that's what happened. They opened the coffin and saw that Richard's body had turned into just bones and dust. Tom still turns the boat around and rescues Wyke, and finally escapes from Half because they think the widow's curse may have ended here. On the other hand, Tom's son, Evan, is in love with a girl named Kelly. So the two of them are chatting in the room. Kelly thinks Evan's father might be hiding a secret from her. That's why they started searching the room and found some old photos there. The picture shows Ivan standing with his mother, and Ivan learns the terrible truth because Tom told his son that his mother died during childbirth, but it was a lie. Ivan is standing next to his mother as usual. That means Tom lied to him. But why? Then we see another thing. Kurt, the keeper of the Breakwater Inn, is evicting a guest from his hotel, but the camera shot slowly moves to a picture hanging on the wall. In the picture, we see a boat in the middle of the ocean's extreme waves, and a child has probably fallen off the boat and is swimming in the waves. We have seen this picture many times before, but what is its real meaning? Then we see Tom, Wyke and Patricia, with a look of relief on their faces. Why wouldn't it be? They think that the curse on the island has been lifted. Tom has already made plans for the future. I will also go to the mainland to watch a game with my son. His son asks him many times why they can't leave this island. But this time Tom will take him. Anyway, Tom has convinced everyone that everything is fine from now on. This city is going to be great. However, upon returning home, he noticed that his son was not smiling at all. And why would his son have learned the truth that his father lied to him about his mother's death? Tom tells his son that his mother had been diagnosed with a strange disease after Evan was born. He had become mentally ill. And because of that, he had to be put in a mental health center. However, he died 2 years later. Tom finally tells his son the truth, and Ivan is happy to learn that his father isn't hiding anything from him after all. Even Tom promises his son that the two of them will go to Chicago together. This means that the relationship between son and father is gradually getting better. Wyke then goes to that museum. There he shows Gary an old photo. They're old pictures. So they were there chatting. At that moment, news came that there had been a theft at the museum. The thief allegedly stole the mask of the infamous boogeyman and escaped. The boogeyman is the serial killer that Patricia is so afraid of, from whom Patricia somehow saved her life as a child. After hearing this news, Wyke quickly goes to the boogeyman's old house and finds that the house has been vandalized. This means that the infamous boogeyman whose grave was in that house may have come out of the grave. On the other hand, Patricia, who was packing her things at home, suddenly the alarm on her mobile library van went off and Patricia realized that she was no longer alone, there was someone there, and that someone was none other than her nightmare, the boogeyman music. What else does Patricia see? She runs away like crazy, going door after door, but she doesn't get any help, and finally she goes to Chris's house, her friend with whom Patricia has had problems since the beginning. Patricia asks them for help, but Chris thinks that Patricia is doing this again for attention. I mean, Patricia is saying that the boogeyman is back again. However, because Chris doesn't believe her, Patricia hits Chris with the treasure she has. Whatever it is, that boogeyman is following Patricia. How long will poor Patricia run? So the boogeyman grabs him by the arm and goes to kill him. However, an ambulance arrived there in time, due to which the boogeyman fell to the ground. Now everyone thinks that maybe the person was injured. But no, his death is not that easy. First he killed the paramedic. Patry ran away again and ended up in front of a gas station, where he tries to burn the boogeyman to death. However, the employees there extinguished the fire. Patricia's plan fails. Anyway, boogeyman is running on an extreme ramp. He killed that employee too. But finally, the sheriff arrived there in time with a shotgun in hand. Despite that, that boogeyman is not dying. Rather, the boogeyman would have killed that sheriff too. However, in time, Patricia took the shotgun and fired. The boogeyman falls to the ground, but Patricia still can't confirm whether he's dead or not, so his body is taken to the morgue and burned to ashes. Patricia stands there until it's burned. Anyway, our sheriff's wife is pregnant. And that's why Patricia warns him to leave town before the baby is born. This widow's curse won't leave her family, as we know from the beginning that those born in this place can't leave. On the other hand, White was also looking for Patricia and was a little worried when he didn't find her at home. That's why he goes to Tom's house. The relationship between Tom and his son is slowly improving. But what Tom thought was right wasn't necessarily right. Wake has come to know everything and he clearly tells her that everything is not over yet. Richard is definitely dead. However, the real danger posed by Windows is still alive. Then we see that flashback scene again. That scene from the past when Sarah was trying to escape from this island with those children. But that boat suffered a terrible accident. Richard had said that no one would be able to leave this island. Sarah and the other children probably died in that accident. But only one child can return from there alive. And that is Francis Warren. That's the Francis Warren we saw in the picture in Breakwater Inn, where a little boy falls off a boat and swims into the ocean, or asks for help. Anyway, let's get back to the present time. A terrible storm has hit Widow's Bay. Mr. Patty repeatedly requests Tom to sound the emergency siren to warn everyone and bring them to the shelter so that no one is in danger. Meanwhile, Tom is in doubt. Because if panic spreads among the people, the reputation of this small town or its economic advancement will be severely damaged. Our Tom has worked very hard for this city, hasn't he? All his plans will be in vain. Tom doesn't understand what he should do now. He was vandalizing a picture in anger. And at that moment, looking at that picture, Patricia realized that it was the story of Francis Warren. There is a woman missing a finger in that picture. And sir, reading that journal, Patria learned that Francis Warren had lost a finger because his brother had run a wheel over his finger or something had happened. They thought that the story of Widow's Bay might be over because Richard Warren had no more children alive, but that Francis Warren had survived that boat and returned to Widow's Bay, meaning that Francis's puppies might still be alive somewhere. They had to find out if his descendants were still alive. That means the curse still exists on the island. But the thing is, it's very difficult to find such old history, namely Richard's family tree. And no one has that much time. On the other hand, the storm outside is also getting stronger, becoming more terrifying. Finally, Tom sounded the emergency siren. He informed everyone that there was a shelter at the town hall so that everyone could come and take shelter. Meanwhile, the sheriff was going to the port with his wife. Because the sheriff has learned about the curse of this place and he never wants his child to be born here. He was trying to leave that place. But the weather outside is very bad. The siren has sounded and there will be no more ferries to cross the sea. Wake explains to him that he won't be able to escape this way. Because even if he tries to escape, he will definitely die in this storm. That's why both of them, Sharif and his wife, were taken to the town hall shelter. At the shelter, Wick finds Sarah's old diary again and requests Rosemary to find Sarah's entire family tree. That means finding out his lineage. At the same time, Tom is also worried about his son and he clearly tells Ivan not to leave this shelter, and for the first time, Ivan agrees with his father's words. However, problems arise when the generator in the shelter breaks down. Tom is forced to go to Garrett's house to get some necessary equipment. But even after going there, he doesn't get any help. Because the main things they will need are in the lighthouse to power up that entire shield. So Gat went to the lighthouse that Tom tried to talk to via walkie-talkie. However, the situation is becoming more complicated due to signal problems. On the other hand, the shelter staff is trying to keep everyone calm. Because fear is building in everyone's mind. On the other hand, the situation outside is becoming more dire. We see that the person who came to take shelter was too late and the tornado took him into the sky. At the same time, the sheriff's wife, who was pregnant, is due to deliver. The sheriff can't believe it because he doesn't want his child to be born here. On the other hand, Patricia realizes that they have another employee, Ruth, who is elderly. He still hasn't reached the shelter and that's what he tells Tom, which is why Tom promises that it's okay, he'll find Ruth no matter what and bring her to the shelter. And at that very moment, White called them and told them about the complete lineage of Richard Warren, that is, the descendants he currently has. Rosemary has done all the research and found out that Patricia's fear is true. Because now they have to make a terrible decision. So Rosemary has researched everything that Richard Warren's daughter, Frances, who returned to the island, has a child and her children have a bunch of children again. She has found out the whole news from the archives and has finally found out that her last descendant is Ruth, the old woman who works in this office. And then a silence descends in the house. They have to make a tough choice. As long as Ruth lives, the curse of this island will not be lifted. This is what they think. Tom can't understand what to do. But finally he decides that he will take the hard road. He cannot put the entire island in danger for one person. He will do what he has to do. And then we come to the final episode of Widows, where one terrible secret is revealed after another. We can see that Tom learns some important information while going through Ruth's medical records. Ruth accidentally takes some medicine, including taking 2 medicines together or whatever. After knowing that it is dangerous, he tells Ruth leaving for home. Patry tries to stop him many times. But Tom doesn't listen to anyone. Tom only says one thing, that he should take care of his son, Ivan. Whatever it is, in that shelter. Dr. Morgan saw the sheriff's wife and told her that she would deliver today. Which the sheriff cannot accept in any way. On the other hand, Patricia and wife are trying to calm the rest of the people. Because people are starting to feel like they are being locked up in this shelter. And so that they don't think like that, Dale is asked to arrange some sports entertainment to keep everyone busy. But why shouldn't people panic? Half of the food and water they have in reserve has been destroyed. The electricity keeps going out and Ivan, who was with his friends at the time, can notice a secret passage in the place. A secret tunnel. Ivan doesn't tell anyone, but quietly goes down the tunnel with his friends, and that's where they see the old chair. There's that old chair and that iron gate in front. We saw at the beginning of the story that the chair and the iron gate are located under this city. At the same time, he could see the chair and that iron door on the road they had fled down under Richard Warren's house. On the other hand, Dale, who is looking for a game to keep everyone in line, finds some old film reels that he plays and sees some scary things there. A former mayor there admits that they sometimes had to sacrifice their people to protect the city. Moat Dale was very scared to learn all this and he came out screaming and telling everyone that there was danger in the place. It's a type of death trap that everyone runs away from. And upon hearing this, a scene was created in that place. On the other hand, Tom has gone to Ruth's house, as I saw. Ruth thought that Tom might have come here to take her to the bunker. But Tom says no, they will stay in this house until the storm stops. Discussions are taking place between them. The story is that Tom asks her some moral questions. If killing one person could save many lives, would Ruth do it? Ruth clearly answers that no, because why would she take responsibility for someone's death on her own shoulders? Although Tom did not change his own difficult decision. He mixed the 2 drugs that Ruth was forbidden to take together in Ruth's tea and drank them. After drinking it, Ruth slowly became intoxicated and her head started to seize up. That's why Ruth started talking about some past things. Many years ago, she had a daughter whom she was forced to adopt. In fact, she fell in love with a married man and they had a child. But that man's wife can know that truth. Because of which Ruth separated again. However, the baby girl they had remained with that man. And upon hearing this, Tom became completely convinced that Ruth's daughter was none other than her. Tom's own wife. The thing that Ruth had hidden for so long. And this is the most terrifying truth. Because Ruth is not the last descendant of Richard Warren, but rather Tom's own son, Ivan. Anyway, Tom realizes his mistake. That's why Ruth threw away the lick she had. So that he can't drink the rest. He decided to take Ruth to the hospital. And at that moment the sheriff arrived there. But the sheriff has learned the whole truth from Rosemary and Patricia. He also thought that killing this Ruth might break the curse on the place. Because the sheriff is very worried about his wife's unborn child, and that's why he tries to shoot Rudd directly. Tom then tells the sheriff that he shot the wrong man. He asks Sheriff, then who is the real descendant? But he lies to save his son. He says he knows nothing. But what happens in that bunker? We saw Ivan, PJ, and Kelly go into that terrifying secret bunker. Another man named Kenny sees them and tells those kids to get out of here. Anyway, they leave. But poor Kenny gets trapped in that bunker because the door is locked. It's not opening anymore. Ivan tries hard, but the door still doesn't open. However, a loud noise is heard from inside. He can hear Kenny's screams, and then the door opens on its own. Ivan dared to peek inside and saw that there was no sign of Kenny. Only his torch was lying on the ground, and the iron door opposite the chair, which should have been locked, was open. And at that very moment, the terrible storm that was raging outside stopped. After the storm passes, Tom and the sheriff realize that Ruth is still alive. That means he hasn't died from that sheriff's gunshot yet. On the other hand, Patria and Wyke think that Tom may have really killed Ruth, which is why the storm has stopped. The next morning, Tom Ruth threw the entire family tree, which contained proof of who was descended from Richard Warner, into the sea. Thinking that everything was over, he was about to get into the car with Ivan when suddenly the church bells started ringing. The bell rang about 8 times. And Tom was really shaken by the sight. There is an old belief in this widow's wedding that the number of times the bell rings requires a sacrifice to appease the dark forces. And now that it has rung 8 times, Tom realizes that nothing has ended with Richard Warren's death, but the real nightmare has just begun. This watch has a great history. The bell had rung at first, and the priest went up and saw that the bell was tied, but how did it ring? And while investigating that, he learns the truth and commits suicide. On the other hand, what is that ancient black mushroom hiding within it, and the reason why that bell suddenly rang in broad daylight remains a mystery has been solved, Richard Warren. However, along with that, some new mysteries have been created. We will get the answer to that in the second season of The Widows. So that's all the story of the first season for now. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also, this video of mine. If you like the video, you can like it. If you want, you can subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to follow me on social media, the links to which are in the description. See you there. Give me a till, stay well, be careful, take care, and bye.